trees and finding heirs. One of the hardest things land investors and investors have is being able to locate heirs and people. How many people in LPG right now drop a fire emoji, a comment, a yes, bold? How many people want to learn how to find heirs and people to get more deals? Drop it in. Because this is what it's about. So I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie and Holly if I can find them in here. They're probably on the bottom. Let's see, Steph. Let me see if you have your. I see Holly. Where's Steph? Maybe she's all the way at the top. Maybe she's got her camera on.
Yeah, I just turned it on.
Okay, where is she? Where is she? Can't even see. Oh, there she is. Okay, perfect. Go for it, Steph.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for featuring us, Al. We love presenting on this topic. I have my twin sister on this webinar with us, but I'm going to be presenting for us. My name is Stephanie Shepard, and my twin sister, her name is Holly Subia. This is kind of our specialty is really, getting it down into the nitty gritty of, tackling title, building family trees, locating next to kins, dirty title work. If there's crazy, complex title issues, that's kind of where we thrive. And we have worked with Al on many cases, and so we have quite a few case studies. I'm going to be showing you a few things here tonight. Let's see. Am I able to move the slides, or do I need you to do it?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you can, I have no idea what the best way to do this.
I think you should be able to move to the slide.
Oh, down here maybe? Here, let me see if that worked. Oh. I don't know. Well,
we're seeing goals for today.
Okay. So my sister and I did a presentation almost 2 years ago in Sarasota for the Sarasota RIA, and we presented this presentation, and it was a lot of fun. And I thought that we would share the same with you. I'm a big, I love sharing funny memes and making kind of presentations interactive. So you'll see some funny memes on here. We have some case studies for you. But our goal here is to really show you give you some tools, some tips and tricks to get started right away and have some practical takeaways. And just, I want to make sure it's a lot of fun, honestly. Like building family trees out, it's a lot of fun. When you get into ancestry and start looking at the different types of records, it's really incredible what you can dig up. And you can really see the story of someone's life right in front of you. And I really love that. All right, I'm going to try to hit the next. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we had an icebreaker at this event, and it was a lot of fun. But basically, we wanted to showcase, hey, like, we're going to kind of test your knowledge at this point, and it's totally okay if you don't know the answer. It's what makes it fun, because it was a surprise to us, the answer. But we're giving you a situation where I think you can go to the next one. The next slide. So this was a specific property in Florida. The sole owner of the property, so one owner of the property, had owned this property, had passed away. He did not have a will. So now we switch over to intestate rules. We did not find an obituary. He was married, but his wife died before him, so predeceased him. They did not have any children. He did not have any children ever. His parents also predeceased him, and he had no siblings. So if anyone knows kind of how it flows right off the top, I'd love if you could drop a comment, because, and I'll show you an image of this tree so you can kind of follow along. But basically what happens is if this individual does not have any kids, their spouse, maybe they were never married or their spouse predeceased them, they don't have any siblings, it goes normally before the siblings, it goes back up to parents. And in this case, the parents predeceased him. If he had siblings, it would come down and lateral, and it would go to his siblings. But in this case, there's no siblings, so it goes back up to the parents and out to aunts and uncles, and it's split 50-50 on the paternal side and the maternal side. So if you go to the next slide, I'll kind of show you an image of this tree. Now, they're very small little icons, because I was trying to just show how big this tree was. And when you start showing the individual's next of kin, the tree just keeps getting wider. So it shows most of it. But our decedent is right in the middle there. He's highlighted in black. That's the owner of the property. You can see that he had a spouse. She died before him. It's really hard to see the dates on here, but I'll kind of map it out for you. And then we have the parents. And as you can see, the tree is split paternal, maternal. So you can see both sides of the tree. So the maternal portion of the tree is on the right and the paternal is on the left. So originally, this deal was actually brought to me from my twin sister. She works for two investors in Florida, a partnership in Florida full time. And I trained her how to build these trees out and, identify title issues and kind of follow the chain of title. So she built this tree out. And she brought me in to kind of verify the tree and different things. And we're looking at it. And originally we thought, wow, we have like 13 to 15 heirs, it looks like, right? Because we're following the pre-deceased line. And what was awesome was we thought we're looking at 13 to 15 people that's having to sign a purchase agreement and do the probate with. But after our consult with Al, because we're going back up to the tree and out and then down, if those cousins, you can see they're on the same line as our decedent in the middle there. Those are all cousins. If those cousins also predeceased our owner, because you think about it, the next line is the aunts and uncles. If they predecease, it flows down. But then those cousins, if they also predecease, that line is actually cut out. So I just try to remember predecease. That's just kind of what I try to remember in my head. Because remember, Al says if someone post-deceased, the whole process just essentially starts over. You think, okay, brand new probate. Did they die with a will? Did they have a spouse? Did they have any kids? Like you just start that whole process over for that specific heir. But if they predecease, that line is out. So what happened was instead of 13 to 15 heirs, we only had to get two. There's only two heirs in this situation. So what might look intimidating, I just want to encourage you, what might look intimidating like this, it's actually a lot easier of a deal than you would think. Most investors would have passed on this, and I'm sure many had at this point because this one, if I remember correctly, Evanovsky was the last name, and that there were so many different variations of the last name, Ivanovsky, Evanovsky. These names when they migrate over from overseas, they change, and you really have to track that properly. But that's what makes it fun. So I just wanted to kind of share that visually again. It looks more complicated. It was definitely a complicated tree, but when we got down to, figuring out who the actual sole heirs were, there's only two. And if I remember right, I think they were both on the maternal side, or maybe one-on-one. But anyways, you can go to the next slide. It just kind of proves, we had our, again, here's a funny meme, but 13 to 15 heirs. Originally, we had a consult with Al, and it was like mind-blowing to realize, oh my gosh, only two heirs. Let's go after them, right? So it was really great and it was really fun. So what's funny is, me personally, I don't like to give up when I'm kind of building a tree out. I can really go down the rabbit holes, and it's really hard for me to say, like, I can't find anything else. Like, there's usually always something. So that's kind of why people bring me in on their deals, because they get stuck, right? They get stuck. They try to figure this out. Their brain is burnt out. They've hit a wall, and I can come in and kind of pick up where they left off. And it might take me a while. Like Al brought me in on a deal, and it seemed almost impossible. And it took me 40 hours to figure out a date of death for the great-grandmother, I think it was. But I was so determined. I was so determined to learn why I couldn't see what I wasn't seeing. But what's great is Ancestry is just a plethora of data. You just have to know how to use it, right? So, okay, next slide. Okay, so this is a little bit about me and my sister. So we're twins, we're identical twins. My sister Holly, she's located up in Portland, Oregon. She works virtually for, like I said, a company, Florida Sell Now. Mark and Dominic are the owners of Florida Sell Now. They're incredible. I've done deals with them. So she is their full-time researcher. So all she does is build family trees. She will skip trace. She will analyze title, review who the heirs could be, who the points of contact, why aren't they reaching the owners of this property, whether they're alive or not. And she's trying to really, keep those top of mind so that they can reach them. Because if you think about it, most investors, they're going and buying a bulk list of foreclosures, right? And they're just hitting the phones or sending text messages or direct mail or what have you. And they're not tracking who they're not reaching. They're only worried about who they're reaching and not so much on who they're not reaching. So they're not spending as much time on who they're not reaching because they're just trying to reach people. And that's Holly's sole job, is to focus on we need to figure out who we're not reaching because those other investors aren't paying attention. So that the competition's a lot less, but the deal spreads are a lot more. So it's a really cool niche. When you get good at researching, it pays off, over and over. And this is what I do full time. So I'm a wholesaler primarily in my Northern California market, but I also do a lot of joint ventures out of state, and I really just kind of go where the deals are. I would say though, primarily my deal flow is from Florida and Texas, outside of California, but I've done deals elsewhere as well. And we obviously like working with my twin sister every day in some capacity is a dream come true. So I'm really blessed. Okay, next slide. Thank you. So just kind of the goals for today. I just want to make sure we give you some really cool stories, give some insights so you can get started tonight if you wanted to. And ancestry, like I said, and I think with women in general, we're really good at being like those sleuths that people, we solve crimes that other people couldn't, So I just feel like it's just a natural thing for us to kind of take up. And of course, any men can as well, but it's just been a lot of fun. Okay. So I just wanted to share this. This is specific to Florida, but as you can see, the silver tsunami is what they call it, is coming, right? We can see the rise in probate cases over the last decade, and they're only growing. So the silver tsunami is coming. There is a huge opportunity to, locate these opportunities in Florida or whatever state you're working to see, hey, I'm going to try to target even deceased owners, try to locate what's going on with their estate, next of kin, all that kind of stuff, and see this as an opportunity to work some deals and some data. Okay, and what I like about this quote is, don't think outside the box, think like there is no box. I feel like this really describes me. And when you kind of get into this realm, it will describe you too, because like I said, I really try not to have things limit my ability to get information. I will hit walls still, but I'm just relentless in that, and I try to think creatively on how I can get information. As an example, this actually happened last week where I had a good friend of mine, Michelle. She's in Texas, and she's working some really crazy big deals. Al, I don't know if you met her at Logan's event, Michelle Bridger, but she was working this piece of land. It's like 15 acres in Texas, deceased owner. Very common name, like a Jon Stewart situation. And she hired these amazing PIs that I even know, and they ran a report and they said, hey, based on what we found, here's his son. We think he died after him, and here's his son had a child as well. So they started hitting the phones, and they realized this person isn't even related, right? And that's the whole thing, is like, it's easy to find, bad data. And it's not the PI's fault, it's the systems and tools that they use. Just said, hey, we think this is a relative, we're going to put this in here. And so what I did was, we knew that he was in a nursing home before he passed, and I noticed that on his last known address. So I just started calling the nursing home, and my phone kept saying user busy. So I said, okay, they probably have changed their number, or maybe I just have a bad number. So I skip traced the owner of the building, because again, I'm thinking maybe they know the phone number's changed, and I reach him, and I said, hey, and I wasn't making an assumption that he was involved in the operations of the nursing home, but I said, hey, I'm trying to reach the nursing home, in this building that I think you own, and I just want to know, did they change their number? And he's like, oh, well, how can I help you? And I'm like, oh, well, and he's like, their telephone line's down. We have someone out there right now. So I'm thinking this is a total timing thing, right? It was on my side. And he said, well, how can I help you? And I said, I know this guy was in your care within the last, several years. I'm not sure if he passed away there, and I'm trying to find his next of kin because, again, he has a very common name. And in Texas, you actually cannot pull the death certificate unless you're related or like a court order, and you have to wait 25 years. So if it's 25 years or more, then anybody can request it, but if it's within that 25-year period, you have to be a direct relative or like a court order funeral director on the death certificate situation. So I said, I'm just trying to find a point of contact, and he said, I'm going to have to look at my files, but I think I remember his next of kin or his point of contact was his sister, and I said, that would be great if you can check. So he took a couple of days and got back to me and he said, we destroyed files after 5 years. It must have been more than 5 years ago, but I remember he had a sister. He never wanted us to call her. And he's like, but I know where he went after he was with us. And he told me where he went to another nursing care facility. So I called them, and again, I call them. I would say it's hit or miss on whether they're going to share information with you because it kind of falls under HIPAA. But I said, hey, look, I was told to give you a call from this other nursing home. He said this guy had a sister as a point of contact, just wondering if you had a name. And they gave me the name and phone number for her and the niece, right? So, I mean, it's just blown out of the water. And now my business partner, Michelle, my JV partner on it, she's already locked. I think they're signing docs tomorrow. So, it's just all these things, just think creatively, and you won't know unless you try, right? They could tell you no, but just try it. And I think a lot of people just get caught up in like, I don't want to hear no, just try it. You never know. Okay. All right, so key skills and techniques. So like Al said earlier, always start with the property appraiser. And, the property appraiser in Florida, it's going to be the it's going to be the appraisal district in Texas. They're all kind of named differently, but if you just go to Google and you say, I'm trying to think of Harris County, Texas deed search or Harris County, Texas property search, right? It's going to take you to the right place. Deed review is incredibly important. It's probably the number one thing because, like Al said, you could be researching the wrong person who actually has no true ownership in the property, and you want to make sure you understand the chain of title before you go deep into the rabbit holes and spend 2 hours trying to find this person, right? So that's why deed review is so important. I mean, we could do a whole session just on deed review, and it's fun. It's fun. So maybe an idea for another time, but it's a lot of fun. Skip trace. So skip tracing, you could, if you look up an address on Google, right, you can go to White Pages, you can use services like Skip Genie or IDI Core or whatever. I always tell everybody, hey, if the property address and the mailing address is different, always skip trace the mailing address, even if it's a P.O. box, because if you think about it, most people that have a P.O. box have had them for decades. And maybe they raised their kids, and those kids were also tied to those P.O. boxes or that other mailing address, right? Maybe they've been at this second home for a long time, and their kids, they live with their kids. This mailing address is their child's home that cares for them. I always say you're gonna gain more ground if you skip trace the mailing address first if it is different. Obviously, if it is the same as the subject property, just skip trace that, and you should be able to see who's been associated with that address other than the owner. So that's really important. Checking the county court records for probate filing. So if you know that your owner is deceased, always go to whatever county you're working. So in Duval, go to Google, Duval County Civil Case Search or Duval County Probate Case Search, right? It doesn't matter what county, what state. I always go to Google. I could do Sacramento County, California Probate Case Search or Civil Case Search. It's going to show me the right direction to go to look that up. Number 4, checking county official records for POA or unique documents. So in Florida, this is official records. So if you go to Google, and you don't need to know all the terms, just go to Google, Duval County, deed records, Duval County official records, however you want to say it. and it's going to take you to the area where you can search by name. You can search by document. Sometimes you can search by legal description if you know it, and you can see everything that's happened on that property or everything that's happened with that owner, right? So it's really, that's a lot of fun too. Number 5, Google search for obituary. So if you know you're dealing with a deceased owner, again, Google is my best friend. I go to Google for everything. It's going to show me the way, right? So I go to Google. If I know that, John Smith passed away in Sacramento, or lived in Sacramento County, and he's deceased, I'm going to assume that he died in his, where he lived. So I just go to Google and say John Smith, Sacramento, CA, obit, or obituary, and I just kind of see what results pop up. Another thing too is if you happen to know that this individual was married or had a child, or if you know any family members offhand, you can also, I call these sister obituaries, you can go to Google and try to look for their obituaries, because just because you don't find the owner's obituary doesn't mean they were not mentioned in their mother's obituary, which lays out the whole family tree, and boom, saves you all this time on trying to figure out who's related, right? So if you, and as you're gathering information, you might find that out later, but I always look for obituaries, and sometimes Ancestry doesn't merge that data in. So, but it'll pull up on Google, right? If it's an obituary after like 2000, 2005, and there is an obituary available, you're more than likely going to find it on Google. Newspapers.com is another resource, but people have just stopped publishing them because it's so expensive. So sometimes it's harder for Ancestry to kind of pull that data in, and if it's not available, right? And then reference tips, tricks, and tools. So that's kind of later. Okay. All right. Research tips, tricks, and tools. So expanding public records research. So kind of like I said earlier with, going to the land. In Texas, it's called the land records, and in Florida, it's called official records. It's where you see, if I owned a property there, if anything that I've ever recorded or bought or sold or got a mortgage or whatever, it's going to be, if I search by my name, it's going to show up anything and everything, right? Marriage records sometimes, divorce is usually going to be like a civil case search. Just you want to kind of see what kind of activity they've done, because again, sometimes like an affidavit of heirship would be filed in Texas as an example, and it gives you the whole family tree. So and it's right there in the land records, right? So you don't need to go build a tree and find out everything. Like someone's already filed an affidavit for whatever reason, and it's there for you to grab. So skip tracing platforms, Ben Verified, IDI Core, Skip Genie, those are all paid, so you have to pay for those. But you can do white pages. I mean, there's so many free tools just to get started and to get on the phones or to start. There's so many free tools. I just saw the comment Find a Grave. Find a Grave is actually really good too. I love Find a Grave. They are pretty easily connected with Ancestry as well. So if you're looking for someone, and Ancestry can kind of gauge who you're looking for, it'll say, hey, there might be it'll suggest records and say, hey, we think we know who you're looking for. Go ahead and look at all these other records too. And Find a Grave might be one of them. And I love Find a Grave. It's actually primarily updated by volunteers. And and you can actually reach out to people on Find a Grave. It's really, so you can message the volunteers. Sometimes the relatives will update it themselves. So I always pay attention to who updates the record, and it's like super tiny, but details matter so much. So again, that's just one of the things that I kind of look for on a Find a Grave record is like, okay, who's updating this? Is there a picture of the headstone? You can call the cemetery where it's at and say, hey, is there anybody, buried around this that could be possibly related? Or sometimes they have a file for them, like who's been maintaining the gravesite. So just kind of think creatively. Ancestry.com obviously is like one of the best things ever. Obviously, it's another paid site. But if you know how to use it, I mean, you're gonna kill this space. But it can be overwhelming for sure. I'm happy to hop on a call with someone if they, I can spend a few minutes with them and show you like some basics, or maybe I'll even do like a Loom video, give you guys some basics. But it's an amazing tool. And just so you guys know, like, I don't know if anybody knows how the census records work, but we just had the 2020 census taken in 2020, obviously, right? And that census is going to be sealed for 72 years. So no one, and it's for our privacy. So no one's gonna be able to search that census until 2092, right? Crazy. So the last known available census that we have access to currently is the 1950 census. And that came available within the last couple of years. And that was really exciting because I had a lot of sellers that were born between 1940 and 1950 that now are on a census record that says, John Smith was age 4 in 1950, and here's his mom and dad and sister. And so that way you can get started on the tree right away. So that's really exciting. It's when you find an owner that was born in 1951 or greater, if it's limited information, you got to work a little harder, but there's still plenty of data to work through on there. But Ancestry is amazing. The census records are amazing. That's just one of the record types in there. City directories, again, Ancestry. So this one actually saved my butt on that deal with Al for the 40 hours. And I was having to actually, the 1930, 20, and 1910 census records for Jacksonville, for Duval County, were not indexed yet, which meant they were available to view, but you couldn't search them. So I had to take old maps of Jacksonville, thank goodness they were on there, online. Again, Google, old historic maps of Jacksonville. They were able to take me to this historical society website. They gave me an image, and I was able to look and see how the precincts changed. And this has got to a point almost like forensic level. I was looking at the precincts, and I was seeing how the precincts changed, and then I was looking at thousands of pages of census records to see where they could be. I mean, thank goodness the street name never changed. And she owned that property since it was built in 1908 or something. So that helped tremendously. But city directories too, if you're not quite catching a good route on someone that was born, before, 1950, there will be white pages and yellow pages, right, that they have indexed in there, and you sometimes are not indexed, but you can quickly find, okay, it's by last name, right? I'm going to search for Johnson. Okay, there's David A. Okay, he was at this address, or there's, and it'll say wife or something, so there's those little details that matter. Newspapers.com, again, that is a paid service, and you can actually add that onto your Ancestry membership for really cheap, and it's worth it. You'll find a lot of historical newspaper clippings, other than even obituaries. They'll have marriage, announcements. It's really cool, actually, to see the full page marriage announcements people used to do. Exciting school news or activities. I mean, you just never know, right? And then my biggest thing I tell people is, most of the time I have to go backwards in time to go forward in time, right? We're looking at someone specific that was born, in the 40s or the 50s or even the 30s, and I have to go backwards in time to figure out who the next of kin is, right? So it's just, I would say, going backwards to go forwards, and it's just, so true. Okay, so I'm going to give a couple case studies of just how I kind of thought outside the box. And this isn't specific to Ancestry or building a tree out per se, but I just wanted to give you guys some examples of thinking creatively. So this case was brought to me. This was a abandoned house in Florida. I'm trying to remember what county, but I think it was Tampa or something. And someone had reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm having trouble locating this guy or getting a hold of him. I believe he lives in England, and I have found his Facebook profile." I said, "Okay, great." So I went to his Facebook profile. I skip traced him. I did confirm that he had a P.O. box that was a U.S. Air Force base in England. So I knew that was going to be a little tough to reach out to, but it was an option. But, I don't like to just mail a piece of mail and wait. I want to get a hold of somebody. I'm proactive. So when I was looking at his profile picture, I noticed this guy was on a Harley. So one of those motorcycle guys, total typical motorcycle guys, maybe even in one of those, I hate to say motorcycle gangs, but the groups that ride all together and they just love it. So I was okay, I just made a mental note. So I noticed, I take a look at all the details on the Facebook page, and I noticed that's, Motorcycle Club. I noticed that all of his posts that he was posting were being shared. Right. So, and usually people that share your personal posts Like, it's not just a meme or something. It's like, oh, hey, my daughter got an A+ at school, right? I mean, if someone was to share that, it's going to be like my mom, right? Or like my dad or my sister. It's not going to be like my friend that lives in, that we barely keep in contact, right? So I noticed that this motorcycle club kept sharing his posts. So I went to that page, and like it had an email and it had a phone number, and the email address gave it away. It was like motorcycle club. It was so funny. It was like motorcycle club captain John, right? And it was who I was looking for. So I'm like, well, we got an email, we got a phone number, and it was a U.S. phone number, right? And the guy was able to make contact with him the next day. So just again, like, he didn't think about all that, and I didn't really think about it too unless I got in there and I started poking around, and I'm like, okay. So just again, it could be as simple as that on these types of deals, right? But just thinking creatively, and this guy obviously was alive, wasn't a deceased owner situation, but I wanted to share that just as a kind of a fun one. Okay. Okay, this next one. This one was, I think this one was in Memphis, Tennessee, if I remember correctly. It was an abandoned, vacant apartment building. It was going up for tax auction, and the guy that reached out to me said, hey, I'm trying to, get a hold of this owner, but it's a Delaware formed LLC, and the mailing address on the property appraiser is a Malaysian mailing address, right? I'm like, well, I've never had to deal with a Malaysian mailing address before. Like, I don't even know where that is. Like, I'm just so geographically not, like, updated, right? So I go to Google, and I'm like, I plug in the mailing address, and like, where is this? So it actually pulled up on the continent or whatever. It pulled up 3 different pins, and 2 on one side of the continent and 1 on the other. So as I'm kind of looking at either one, I realize, okay, it's not this one, it's one of these 2 that are close by. And as I zoomed in, I'm like, okay, it's definitely this pin. So I just Googled, and what was weird is the address said, it was like 123 Main Street Resort, apartment 202, right? So I'm like, that's kind of weird. Like that they have apartments at the resort. I mean, again, I'm just naive in that. But I went to Google, I plugged in the resort name, and it takes me to the website. I'm going to the contact us, and it says contact us on WhatsApp. And I don't know if either of you have WhatsApp, but it's a great app to have. It's free, and it's how you can use your Wi-Fi to communicate. You can text, you can make calls, so it's a great app. And so I went right to my WhatsApp, and I dropped in their phone number, and there was like 300 members in this WhatsApp group. So I'm thinking, oh, I wonder if these are all the employees of this resort or something. And I said, hey, super random, but does anyone know where this is? Right? And I put the address in there, and this one guy messaged me, and he's like, yeah, that's right in front of the resort. There's some apartment complexes. And I was like, awesome, do you work there? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, can we pay you to go, like, drop this, like, letter off? And he's like, yeah. So again, just thinking creatively, and I don't really know where I'm going. I'm just kind of, it's almost like I'm jumping out of a plane, and I'm knitting my, my parachute on the way down. Like, I mean, just literally trying to think as I do it. So it was a door knock opportunity, and unfortunately, we weren't able to make contact with them, but because it was a vacant apartment, so I'm sure they just travel a lot or something, but it went to tax auction. So it was unfortunate, but I just, again, shot in the dark, and they responded. So just another kind of fun situation. Okay, so this one I actually did with Florida Still Now, the company that my twin sister works for, and this was another kind of Facebook situation, but this one was in, I think, Naples, Florida, if I remember correctly, and the owner passed away within the last couple of years. Mark, the owner of Florida Still Now, reached out to me and said, hey, we think we've located a potential Facebook page for this heir. We just want to confirm he's the heir, and we want to make sure this was him. So I started going through Ancestry and finding his name, and then, he had an alias name on Facebook. So, but I did confirm it was him, because based on his location on Facebook and what I was finding out, it was him. So I asked Mark, I said, hey, have you sent him a Facebook message? He said, yes, but I don't think he's read it. It doesn't show me he's read it. Well, when someone randomly sends me a Facebook message that we're not friends already, I can actually read the message, and it will not show I've read it to the other person, right? So, and it's just to protect the person reading it. So I was like, well, I'll give him a shot. Like, again, I don't know, I'm not nothing special, but maybe he'll respond to a female. I don't know. So I sent him a Facebook message, right? And literally it was just like, hey, is this John? Or, something kind of basic. And I'm impatient, right? So he's not reading it or not responding. So I go to his Facebook page and I realize that anybody can comment on his posts, right? Like, he doesn't have a private. So, and he was active, he was posting stuff daily. So I just went on one of his posts and I just said, hey John, I know you don't know me, but I sent you a really important message. I hope you can read it. That's like literally all I said. And it took him like 4 weeks, but he did respond to me. And then he was starting to question me and like really make sure I wasn't catfishing him. And like he would ask me what his real name was. And I was answering because I had all that information. And I just really built rapport with him pretty quick. And he was able to give us permission to go into the property and, inventory all the personal belongings and like all this stuff. We actually ended up shipping him. He lived in Guam. We shipped him like all this original silverware and silver and all this kind of stuff. And he got it the day after he got it. A big hurricane hit Guam, and it was we didn't have contact with him for a few days. It was kind of crazy. But anyway, like a mark before it's on, they got a seal of the deal on that house, and it was a win-win for everybody, right? So I can understand people's hesitation because, to me, it says, like, scammers, there's so many scammers out there. And I told him, I said, hey, look, I understand catfishing is a real thing. Please check out my Facebook profile. I've been on there for freaking 20 years. I had pictures of my kids on there. Like, you know what I mean? So I could sleep at night by scamming people. It's just me personally. But, it's just, I want you to even ask me anything, So anyway, it's just people are protective of their time and also of their lives, right? So it was just another one. And now we're Facebook friends and like, you do build relationships with people, like it or not. Okay, so now I'm going to show you some real life examples of kind of using ancestry to break through on deals. This is a deal in Lubbock County, Texas, so West Texas. And this girl brought me, her name's Leslie, she brought me this prospect. She said, hey, I'm trying to find this lady, her name I don't know. I know she has a daughter, I don't know where she is or really what her name is. So her name was Minnie. And she was born as one of the sellers. She was married several times. She was Minnie Williams. She was, I think that this one actually is like the census record. The one on the right, that's the census record I have highlighted, and then the one on the left is a tree. But I have two different minis. I literally had like 3 or 4 mini cases in front of me at the same time, and I'm like, I think I'm getting these confused. But anyway, similar story. So the one on the left, our decedent is right in the middle, it's highlighted black. Her name's Darla Christopher, and her mother was Minnie. And her mother married a few times, and it was really kind of hard to identify her, who was who. And her dad, Lester, I believe he died young, and like there wasn't a lot of information about him. But Darla was actually born as a Billy. I think it was Billie Jean. It's on the next slide. She was born as Billy, and they had an immediate name change to Darla. So there wasn't a lot of records pertaining to Darla in terms of a birth record. That we did find one, but it was just really hard to identify her. And then if you go to the next slide, when we went to the county, the one on the right, see it says amendment to certificate of birth. Oh, Billie Jim. Okay, so she was born as a Billie Jim, and they renamed her Darla Jim. So, but on here, there's a key piece of information, which was great because we still were not able to really tie her to anybody. But on here it says type of document, affidavit of older cousin D. Estelle Poston. So now I have a cousin's name. And so like this document was huge. Leslie was able to go down and get this document, and she had to go down to La Mesa Texas. I think it was like a couple hours away from her. But she got it, and the moment we got it, I went right to work. I went right back into the ancestry, and like we were able to find out her, and then we were able to tie everybody together. And then the record on the left, that's the department, Texas Department of Health Bureau of Vital Statistics. So these are all the birth records for a specific number of years, and it shows Darla Jim Christopher, right, and then Many Sellers, and then LG Christopher. So it's just, you find all these different types of records, you just kind of have to merge them together and make sure it's the right people, especially when you're dealing with common names and stuff, like those can get kind of hairy, but this took about 6 weeks of, a couple hours a week for sure, and she had to go travel to get this, so it just took a while. But if you go to the next slide, I'll explain why it kind of took a while too. So on the left, you'll see a funeral for Miss Ball. So again, her mother was married a few times. She was born as Sellers, and then she was Christopher, and then, Miss Ball. So she married someone by the last name Ball, right? And then it says where she died, and then where the services will be. And at the bottom, it says survivors include 2 daughters, Mrs. J.C. Dutton of Lubbock and Mrs. Gordon Loving of Plainfield. Now, Darla became Darla Loving. So now I know she has 2 daughters, not just one. And now I need to figure out who the heck is J.C. Dutton, right? Because it's like there's no first name, there's no middle name. I know what they start with, but is that like a John Chris? Is that a James, Carl? I mean, there's just so many variations, right? So, and it does give me their locations, which is great. So like I pay attention to all of that. As I'm reading these, I'm making a note of the names, where they're at, what year this is, so I know kind of general locations for those areas. But, I'm writing out so many details from just that type of record, right? And then I wanted to show you an example of a city directory on the right. This is an old one. I don't remember what year this was, but like if you look at Williams on the right column, it'll say Lucille, and then it says C, and then it says Maid, R 820 Johnson. So for a profession, she is a maid. C means colored. So Lucille's colored, she's a maid. R means rent. So she's renting 820 Johnson. So I think it says O when they own it. I'm trying to, or H, it says H, I think house. So, just picking up on those things, there's usually like a appendix that kind of gives you that, like, it's like a key. They give you a key at the beginning or the end of these. So, and they're all usually the same, but like, again, just paying attention to those things is so important. And sometimes it'll say on here, let me see if I can find another one. Oh yeah. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The fifth one down, Lucius E, and then in parentheses it says Inez T. That means that Lucius E. Williams, Inez T is his wife. So that's what that means. So there's just so many cool things to learn, and like how you can piece information together. And I mean, I learned the most on that Minnie Williams one with Al, but like these were breakthrough type situations. Okay. Oh, do we have one back? I can't remember. Okay, so some of the key takeaways is, don't overlook deceased owners. If anything, like I get excited about, I hate to say it like that, but I get excited about them because it's a challenge, and I'm like, ooh, it's a race to find the next person, right? Like, so I love those types of deals, especially when someone's like, I've been working this for hours and I can't find them. I get even more excited because I'm like, I know this is going to be a hard one. I'm really excited. Leverage your network, your professional network. Obviously, like Al is my go-to Florida probate attorney. We have a group chat. I'm just like, tell me about this situation. What do we do? I mean, just you want to make those relationships really strong in the areas that you're working, and you might be working virtually, right? But just establish those connections in the market. Al knows tons of people across the U.S., right? I know tons of people in Florida, I mean, really anywhere. So if you are looking for a specific, like someone had asked, I think it was Donna, she needed a North Carolina probate attorney or contact, and I said, I know, like Uncle Carl's in Charlotte. He literally is in Charlotte, and I think he uses attorneys for his closing. I'm actually doing a deal right now, and that one's in Charlotte. It's a joint venture deal, and we have an attorney too. That's why I think it's an attorney state. Some states are attorney states for probate, or like for title, for title work, and some are title escrow. Like in California, Northern California is title and escrow is one, but if you go down to Southern California, they're separate. So it's just everywhere is a little different. Don't be afraid to dive in, and like that's how you learn. I mean, I was the very first time I tried this, I was looking for an owner's next of kin in my area, and I probably spent, I'm not even exaggerating, 100 hours on it. And you know what really broke through the deal for me? Was I called the code enforcement officer. I even took him to lunch. I was like, please tell me who you guys have as a point of contact, right? I was trying everything to wine and dine him. And he finally says, I'm giving you a name. And it was a pretty common name too, but I was able to find her on Facebook. So I did all that digging, and it was another common name where she remarried situation. And when I reached out to the heir, it was too late. The county had already appointed, the city had appointed a receiver to handle the property, and that's like a whole other thing. But she basically told me, she said, we just want to get in there and we just want to get our family photo albums. Like, that's really what we want. It broke my heart because I knew they were destroyed. That property had so many transients coming in and out and doing drugs and all this stuff, but I was so determined to try to find whoever the point of contact was, right? It was an amazing neighborhood and all this stuff. So it really was heartbreaking, but I actually got the next door neighbor under contract while I was researching, so it was just funny. But anyways, just go down the rabbit holes, have fun while you're in there. I mean, literally, that's how you learn. I just wanted to share that with you. I just want to encourage you, don't be afraid. Even I built out I started building out my own family tree as a test. That's how you really get to learn and like see who your relatives are. There are people on Ancestry that have hundreds of thousands of people in their trees because they're just hobbyists. They're just adding people in there, and it's insane, right? But you can actually message people on Ancestry. If you notice a tree is built out that someone you're trying to go after, and you see that maybe a relative has built it out or anybody else, right? You can actually send them a message on Ancestry. So it's just another avenue to reach out. So anyway, I love it. Thanks, Al, for featuring me. Like I said, my twin sister and we do this full time. I can't remember if I put my contact information on the last one, but oh yeah, I did. Okay, there we go. But yeah, feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email. I'm happy to help. I love this stuff, and I want everyone else to love it too. Like, it really is just a lot of fun. So thank you, Al, for featuring us.
And Stephanie, that was awesome. And every time I listen to you and I watch what you talk about, like, it's always so fascinating because I think the biggest component that investors miss, or they just don't have that skill set of, is the research. Mm-hmm. It's the research. It's knowing where to go. It's having the valuable the tips and the places to go. Ancestry, like, there's a lot of people right now really trying to leverage these resources so they can build out trees, because there's a lot of properties that investors have come across for years. And people have tried to get the right people under contract. They can't find them. Then you have the Stephanies of the world that'll find the land lot in the middle. So you'll have a Miami lot that people for years have been trying to go after, and it's a prime multifamily commercial area. But somebody's still paying the taxes, and it's not behind yet. And it's like, who owns this? Who's doing it? And having resources out there that you can locate and find, like Stephanie's talking about, going back to some of these ones, like the census records and all, like I was telling people in the beginning, Stephanie, being able to know how to go and vital check. Look at that, Bureau of Vital Statistics. You can find so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even like Al had mentioned Florida death certificates. If any of you are working Florida data, Florida is the #1 state for open records. Like, I mean, I've tried a lot of states, right? Florida is definitely hands down the best. I mean, anybody can request a death certificate, the day after death, as long as you don't need cause of death, which we don't care about that. We just want to see, if we want to verify the parents' names or where they were born or the informant's information, So Florida is definitely the best. Each state is different. Like, for my state, I can actually go down to my county, my specific county's clerk, and I can actually request an informational viewing of a death certificate. I can't take a picture of it, but I can take down any notes that I can, right? So I'm writing down, because I mean, when I'm requesting one, it's really just to try to find next of kin or like verify the parents' information or whatever. So, that could be another avenue too. It's hit or miss with counties on whether they will allow that, but it doesn't hurt to ask, right? So if there's a way to view it at the very least, definitely try. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially I think one of the biggest things too is even this slide, like having some of the skip tracing platforms and being able to. I mean, there's companies like Been Verified. I mean, if you want to get intense, like IDI Core or Skip Genie, and there's some other ones out there. Like having the skip tracing, this is where the hardest part about this niche becomes something you can tackle and becomes a great resource so you can get more deals. Like,
Yeah.
the reason I really wanted to have Stephanie on, plus I love her, she's amazing. Like having her on is because she's a real life example of an investor that finds deals that goes whether it's homes or land. And she has learned how to find these resources, share it, because there's only so much that the lawyer side does, right? Like you have title, and like I said, there's three components to these deals. You have title, you have the probate attorney, but then it's the research involved. And it's the research is something that you can tackle, and it doesn't even have to be that intense. I mean, it's literally just searching around. It changes the game, and that's why I really wanted to bring Stephanie on, because I really wanted to show everybody that there's a way to do this in land. And it's great to have the resource on the attorney side, but you gotta know the research on your end when you're sleuthing through deals and trying to pick up deals. And this is going to help so many people. And how many people love that? How many people just drop a comment, drop a yay, people are clapping. Perfect. That we achieved the goal. Thank you, Stephanie, so much for coming on and always being a shining light in our community. And you're always so knowledgeable. The stuff I learned from you, I always learn. And the stories too that Stephanie had, like those stories with the two cousins, those stories that we had with the Guam deal. I mean, I remember exactly how that went down. I remember I got a call from Mark, and he was like, "Hey, so we got a deal, but we can't find the heir." And it's like, but you gotta find the heir. Like you know, there's the son. You have to find the son.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes. So. We'll get to some Q&A for sure. So I think I shared this last time on my checklist. If you need the probate checklist, you're in the Florida market, and you come across these deals, like this is what we're talking about. These are the things that will really help separate you from the other people that are doing these deals, because you're going to be knowledgeable about what you need to get, what you need to collect. And now that you have the knowledge of where you can go search for these things, and that the resources are out there, you just got to sleuth around. There's ways that you can get these deals. If you're in the Florida market, this is my email address. And like I said, I don't know attorneys in every state, but there are states like Texas, Georgia, South Carolina, Maryland, Illinois, Colorado, Arizona. It's not every state. It almost sounds like every state, but there's a lot. But I'm in the Florida market, and that's my QR code. If anybody's got questions, we'll take Q&A for a couple minutes. And just once again, thank you, Stephanie, so much for coming on. And if anybody has questions for Stephanie, and Holly, I see you. Perfect. Love you too. And anybody's got questions, I'll kind of go through the chat a little bit. Let's see. Wow, there's a lot of comments. They're all glowing over Stephanie. Okay, so wow, there's probably there's like so many comments. I can't even get through this. Like I've never seen so many comments before. If you want to get in touch with Stephanie, you know where to get her. And a couple people just asked what practice areas I was at. Just Florida. I'll take one or two questions if anybody wants to come off mute real quick. I'm happy to hear any questions you have. We are live. Go ahead, Sonia. Can we take her? Let me see. Maybe I can unmute
There
her.
we go. There we
All
go.
right, perfect.
It might be a silly, feels like a silly question. I know you guys know, and it might be really basic for you. Is what is skip trace?
You want to take it, Stephanie?
Yeah, so when you're skip tracing someone, basically what you're trying to do is ping information on someone, like their last known address. And you can usually see like their address history up to a certain point, or like their relevant phone numbers that they've been tied to for whatever reason. Sometimes the credit bureaus will like ping your social to, if you're the account holder, ping your social to your phone number, and then it'll update on some of these, these skip tracing platforms or even online, right? So you can get emails, you can verify, years of birth, dates of birth sometimes. So you're just trying to find relevant information on how to contact that individual.
Very good, thank you.
And Sonia, it's a game changer because having those platforms, like if you find a land deal, and this is the classic scenario. You find a land deal, it's a land lot, let's just go, it's in Tampa, and there's 4 kids, and let's just say numbers are really tight, so it really becomes critical to like find the kids. You easily find one kid, and they can lead you to this one or this one. But the problem is there's always that family member they haven't seen in 30 years. Right? We haven't talked to them in 30 years. So they don't know where to find them. They don't know where they are. They think we heard he's in Ohio. That's where these platforms like these skip tracing, like Bid Verified, which is a great resource. If you go on Bid Verified, and I can't remember how much you pay for it a month or whatever, but Bid Verified is one of those resources that you can plug somebody's name in and it'll pull Heir info. Like it'll give possible relatives. So that's the magic about being able to find, okay, who would be somebody we can locate, find, or white pages, and like there's Skip Genie, there's some other software. Yes, or you're gonna have to pay. Yes, or some thing. Maybe the deal's gonna be really worth it, right? Like you find the orange grove, and you're like, all right, well, this is worth paying that kind of money. Or like I talked about before, death certificates. The skip tracing and the ability to go through these records is what's going to make the difference in your deals.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? Raise your hand. Yolanda, did you have a question? I don't know if she'll come off mute. I don't know.
So her question is, she's dealing with a situation where there's 2 brothers on title. I think they both were going to sign, or let's see, 2 brothers owned a lot, both signed the sale agreement, one died. The living brother refused to get a probate and said, I don't need to do that. All I need to do is show his death certificate. How can we proceed? So I was explaining to her, it really depends on how they're titled on the deed, because like in California, for example, if me and my sister are on title as joint tenants, if I passed away, she would just need to show my death certificate and sign an affidavit of joint tenant, and she is now the sole owner. So she would not have to probate in order to sell the property for that specific property, right? If I own another property myself, then yeah, she would, and she was the next of kin, she would need to do the probate for that. But it really depends on what it says on the deed. So what I would recommend, Yolanda, is going to that, wherever the property is at, looking at the deed to when they came on title together and seeing how they're titled specifically, because if they're like tenants in common, then she would need to, more than likely, depending on your state, right? I don't know if you're a probate versus affidavit of heirship state, but more than likely you will need a probate.
Yolanda here. I actually approached the office of Al Nicoderi, and and they spoke to the person, in your office, gave him a list, but he said, I don't want to do that. He's mature already. I mean, they're both mature. I don't want to do that. All I need to do is to give the death certificate. So, what can I do, right?
Yeah, and at the end of the day, the documents end up being really critical for us to look at and see everything, right? Because we have to be able to piece everything together. Like, a lot of sellers and heirs think that it's press a button and we're done. That's the one document is like that's only like one part of this. Then we have to break down and talk to them and actually have a conversation and be like, who are you? One of the biggest things you can ask somebody on a probate deal is like you're talking to a seller, an heir, how are you related to the person that's on the title? Right? It's the softest way of saying it. How are you related? Because if they say I'm a daughter or I'm a spouse, like now you have a high priority and a higher chance that you got the right person. And then we need to talk to them to be like, see, here's what ends up happening. You think you got the right person, and then you get a land deal. You find out the guy on the property, he died. He had a surviving spouse, great. Well, then you find out that he had kids not with her. And he had 4 kids, and he was married to her, but these kids aren't her kids. Now we have a split of 50-50. 50% to her, 50% to the 4. And being able to pull all this stuff out is super important. Like Stephanie's talking about, when you get these deals, one of the biggest things you can do is learn that property appraiser and understand the deeds and what the deeds are saying and who owns it. That is a game changer. But what I'll say is that when it comes to these deals, the checklist is a great qualifying way of trying to get the heirs' cooperation. We work with. I've done in the law firm in 9 years. I've done 2,500 probates. Those people, every time we send the checklist, they get the stuff. Because they know that when we review it, we're going to get it done. And we work with countless investors and land investors that the checklist actually saves them time. Because if the heirs don't cooperate, what are we doing? So, that's a big tidbit. We'll do one more question. Wow, we're like almost 2 hours in. I love it. Everybody having a good time? It's great. All right, good. We can do the owl marathon. Go like 1 in the morning. Who else? One more question. Anybody else? Go once. Go twice. All right. I think we're good. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for coming on. Just want to always give a shout out to the LPG community. It's always a great time to be a part of it. I'll tell you, there are deals to go get those deals. And I always want to provide the value always back to LPG on the probate side, bringing special guests like Stephanie Shepard on with me. And thank you all so much for being on. And you know how to reach us. And tune in next week, Module 3. We are diving deep in curative title. We'll see everybody then. The curative title world is where many other deals can be made. And I'm bringing my partner Jesse on with us. So we'll see you then, everybody. Take care. Have a great night.